I'm Lee Fisher. I'm the Lieutenant Governor of Ohio, and I also serve as the Director of the Ohio Department of Economic Development. I've grown up in Cleveland, and I've lived in I'm 57 years old, and I've lived in Cleveland for about 54 of those 57 years. I decided I wanted to be a public servant when I was in 6th grade. My father took me to Washington, D.C., toured the White House. John F. Kennedy was president, and I got the bug. Came back, ran for president of Fernway Elementary School, and beat the most popular kid to ever attend Fernway Elementary School, Billy Riley. And when I beat Billy Riley, I thought to myself, maybe I can do this. And so for the rest of my life, I've really honestly been interested in being involved in politics and government. I'm the first person in my family ever to run for public office or ever to be involved in politics. So I think it's fair to say my father always wanted me to be a judge, because my father's a lawyer. And so he felt that the ultimate thing in your profession, if you're a lawyer, is to be a federal judge. So when I told him after I graduated law school that my real dream was to run for the state legislature, his first reaction wasn't particularly enthusiastic. But because I have a wonderful family, once I made that decision, they were with me 100%, and they've never faltered. But I think it's fair to say, sure, there were people who said to me I couldn't win, people who said to me I needed to focus on my law career, people who said you really should be a judge someday and not a public official. I listened to them. I thought that their advice was good, but it wasn't right for me. My first public role was I was elected 28 years ago to the Ohio House of Representatives. Then I was elected to the Ohio Senate, and I served there for 8 years. Then I was elected Attorney General of Ohio, and then went into the private sector and served as the president and CEO of a large nonprofit organization in Cleveland called the Center for Families and Children. And then in 2006, January of 2006, my friend Congressman Ted Strickland, who was a candidate for governor, called me and said, would you leave the nonprofit sector and come back into public service and be my running mate? And I decided to do it. I have no regrets. I've been thrilled to have been his running mate and now his lieutenant governor. Since you asked me what are some of the things that I'm most proud of, my very first bill that I introduced 26 years ago was the child safety seat restraint law that requires children in the state of Ohio to be in a child seat if they're weigh less than 40 pounds or are under 4 years old. Now, believe it or not, it was a controversial bill 26 years ago. A lot of legislators said that was intruding in people's lives and we shouldn't do it. Today, every state in the country has one of those, but we were one of the first. Another law that I'm proud of is Ohio's hate crime law that says if you commit a crime against someone else because of the color of their skin or their ethnicity, that's not just a crime against that person, it's a crime against society and deserves stiffer punishment. So I wrote Ohio's hate crime law, and then I had the wonderful privilege of, when I was elected Attorney General, of being able to defend the constitutionality of the hate crime law that I had written a number of years earlier. And I argued the case in the Ohio Supreme Court, and we won. And so that was a wonderful way to be able to look at it as a legislator and then look at it as a lawyer and to be able to bring it to a conclusion. And now, however, I will say to you that of all the things I've done in my life, this job is the one that's most fulfilling. Because to be able to help create jobs, help keep jobs, help attract jobs, in the end, that's what helps everything. It's the rising tide that lifts all boats, if you care about education, if you care about mental health. All those things stem from one thing: economic growth. And we all benefit by it. So to be at the center of the action where I can help grow the economy with my partner, Governor Strickland, it's the greatest honor of my life. And I wake up every day even more passionate than I did when I was Attorney General or a state legislator. If you want a state where you have a balance between the quality of life that's so important for every individual and every family, and a state that is premised on innovation and opportunity, then this is where you want to be. We're in the heartland of the heartland. We are the state of perfect balance between quality of life and being able to support the businesses, small, medium, and large of our state. And that isn't just puffery. Let me explain. First of all, because of our location, we are a perfect place for distribution and logistics. If you want to locate and be in the middle of America, best place to be is the state of Ohio. We have direct access to the largest body of fresh water in the world outside of the polar ice caps, the Great Lakes. You can see it from my window right here. We also have more freight that goes through the ports of Lake Erie and the terminals of the Ohio River than goes through the entire Panama Canal in 1 year. We're fourth in rail, we're fourth in highways, we're fourth in airports. We have an infrastructure that is unparalleled. And add to that, we have a workforce of 6 million people, larger than the total population of 33 states. And we've got a work ethic. Now, you can't measure the work ethic, but you can feel it. I can tell you, I talk to businesses all the time that have located in Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, Northeast, and they always say that when they come to the Midwest, and I admit it's the Midwest, not just Ohio, there's a work ethic that is second to none. And that is something that if we can bottle and package, then no one can beat us. See, there are a lot of states that have weaker, more fragile foundations that have done a better job than we have over the years in terms of being able to aggressively go after business expansion and attraction. But the advantage we've got is that we've got a sturdier, deeper, and broader foundation. Now we have to learn how to be fast and flexible and quick and innovative on top of that foundation. And if we do that, and we're in the process of doing it, no state can beat us. The history of the world, I think, shows that change happens more often from the bottom up than from the top down. And I think the truth of the matter is that although we in government are often the ones who are given either the credit or the blame for what happens, the truth of the matter is the greatest accomplishments, the greatest progress are the community activists in neighborhoods who latch onto an issue. They contact a mayor, they contact a legislator, and all of a sudden it becomes a national movement. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, John Walsh and missing children and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Issues that involve infrastructure and highways and that divide communities, and citizens rise up and say, wait a second, what are you doing? Time and again, that's what happens. And so the best way to really talk about change is to have little girls and boys in elementary school read their history books. And those history books, if they're well written, will explain that these didn't just happen with great people like Winston Churchill and Harry Truman and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They happened with people like Rosa Parks and kinds of people who really were not famous, but simply took something and wouldn't let go, and they changed the world more so than some of those famous people. We are in the middle of an unprecedented global economic crisis that has hit many people very hard. Some of the people who will be watching this are people who are having trouble putting food on the table, or having trouble paying their bills, or paying their mortgage, or paying their rent. And it's pretty hard to be optimistic when you're struggling to survive. But one of the lessons we should all take is the lessons from those who survived the concentration camps in World War II. And the studies have shown that the men and women who survived the concentration camps were not the ones who were the smartest, were not the ones who were the healthiest, they were not the ones who were the strongest. They were the ones who were able to see beyond their own immediate circumstances, the barbed wire, the cruelty of the guards, and see a future. My father-in-law wrote a diary when he was a prisoner of war, and it was filled with pasta recipes, even though he had no idea how to cook. It was filled of the stories of the 9 children he would someday raise. He had an ability that some people didn't, to be able to paint his own future. That's what kept him alive. Hope kept him alive. And I actually believe that if you can see beyond your immediate circumstances and remain optimistic, remain confident, not ignore what's going around you. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Confront those harsh realities, but always be able to see that there's something inside everyone that is able to survive and thrive if you're always looking to the future.